So let me ask you, when you were having this success, you're building Trump Tower, you're doing other things, you bought an airline, the shuttle, and then you got involved in gaming in I guess in Atlantic City.
Atlantic City.
And then the economy collapsed, and many people thought you were not going to be able to survive. How did you manage to get?
Well, I just wanted to continue to live my lifestyle. I like, planes and everything else. In those days, I wasn't married, so I like planes and beautiful women. I liked my lifestyle. I didn't want to lose my lifestyle.
So how did you get through all that?
Well, first of all, the shuttle was great because what happened with the shuttle was this was like 57th and 5th. That was the shuttle going to Washington and Boston. In the airline business, that was sort of like the best asset. So I had that. So the banks came. The market had totally crashed, but the banks came to me and people came to me, and I made a deal where it was a great deal to sell the shuttle, even in bad times. I bought the Plaza Hotel. I made an unbelievable deal in selling the Plaza Hotel because it was so, if that hotel, and I've always said it, if that hotel was one block in any direction, I would have died with it. But because it was the Plaza, I made an unbelievable deal in getting out of the Plaza, and it just worked out really well. And other things I did were, I was telling, actually David and I were speaking before, and I said, the crazy thing about Atlantic City, I was there during the boom time when it was a monopoly and did phenomenally in Atlantic City. But then Atlantic City changed. A lot of bad decisions. They built a convention center. I fought like hell that they wouldn't do this. They built the convention center in the wrong location. They didn't do the airport properly. The politicians took over Atlantic City and absolutely destroyed it. But Atlantic City, for me, has been a great experience. And I got out 7 years ago. And again, made a lot of money, but I do play the bankruptcy laws, not individually, but corporately. And other people do too. Many of your friends that we were talking about before, you look at Caesars is going to go bankrupt, and every time they play the bankruptcy laws, it's just like a standard little story. When I buy a building, the building is in turmoil, it's got a big mortgage, the bank is being vicious and ruthless. I buy the building, I call up the bank, they're not nice, so I throw it into a chapter, I beat the hell out of them, and then I get huge reductions, and then I make a lot of money in the building. But when I buy the building, they say, Trump files for bankruptcy. I didn't file for bankruptcy, I use it as a tool. And the enemies, I call them the losers and haters. I call it that on Twitter. I call them the losers and the haters. They say, oh, Trump went bankrupt. I use that as a business tool, you understand, and so do many of your friends. You look at whether it's Sam Zell, whether it's Leon Black, whether it's Carl Icahn with TWA, we use the different laws. The only thing is that with me, they always say, every time I do it to my advantage, they say, Trump went bankrupt. If David does it, nobody's going to say that, so that makes you smarter than me.
I doubt that, but let me ask you about...
He wants to get off this subject.
I doubt that. Well, but
he doesn't like this
But you
subject.
have been asked a number of times in interviews I've read, you filed for bankruptcy, and you point out you've never filed for bankruptcy.
I've never gone bankrupt.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
so
never.
One of the deals you did that got a lot of attention, I would say you stole the property, but legally, you bought Mar-a-Lago for about $8 million, more or less.
That's right.
And today it's probably worth 100 million or more, 200 million, I don't know. But how did you come up to buy that when it was, pretty cheap then?
Well, that was an interesting deal because, from Florida, that's one of the great pieces of land and it's the greatest house in America, I would say, and turned it into the Mar-a-Lago Club, which is very successful. But at the time, this was in 1986, I went there and it was for sale for $38 million. And I said, I don't want to pay. That was a lot of money. In 1986, $38 million. That's like $300 million today. So they want $38 million. So I said, you know what? But stupidly, the Marjorie Merriweather Post Foundation, the children were not smart like she was. When she died, they sold the beach. And they sold the beach to a friend of mine. And the friend of mine was a great guy. He founded Kentucky Fried Chicken. He founded a couple of different Hospital Corporation of America. Massey. And he was, unfortunately, very sick. He had cancer. And I went to him, and I said, would you do me a favor? Could I buy the beach? Now, this is the beach in front of Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago's on 22 acres. It's this massive house. And they sold the beach for $2 million or $1.5 million. And he said, Donald, you're a friend of mine. I will sell you the beach. And I overpaid for it. I paid $2 million for the beach. But that was the whole beach in front of Mar-a-Lago. And then I announced I'm going to build the ugliest building ever. It was going to be just to take all the views, because I didn't want anyone to buy Mar-a-Lago.
Right.
It was embarrassing. I put this thing with no windows, no nothing, just a wall, so you couldn't see the ocean. In fact, the town almost got sick. They wanted to change the zoning. But I did it for a reason. And then people, Ross Perot, Al Taubman, many people wanted to buy Mar-a-Lago, but they said, we have to have the beach. So people came and they offered me a fortune for the beach. I said, no, no, no. And then I forgot about it. And then a couple of years later, I got a call, and they said, we'd like to sell you Mar-a-Lago. And I almost said, like, what's Mar-a-Lago? You know, you tend to forget. We go on to the next one, right? On to the next victim. And I said, what's your price? And they said, we want $8 million. Now, they want it in the 30s,
right.
And now they want, because they couldn't sell it without the beach, because stupidly, I didn't get along with them, actually. I didn't get along with Dina Merrill at all, because she was upset that I bought it. I said, why don't you buy it? You know, she was the daughter of the great Marjorie Merriweather Post, who was married, as you know, to E.F. Hutton, one of the great financiers. So when she opposed everything I did in Palm Beach, I actually said a statement which never is very good for a relationship. I said, she was born, you know, Marjorie Merriweather Post was a great beauty, a magnificently beautiful woman on top of being smart. I said, she was born with the mother's beauty, but not the mother's brain. This was not a good quote on the front page of the Palm Beach Post in terms of long-term relationship, right?
Right.
But she could have bought it, and she chose not to, and she was in charge of the foundation. They sold it. Anyway, I turned it into a club. So I got it for $8 million. They said, in fact, this is something, you know, David negotiates. If you say a company's worth $1 billion, he's going to say, well, I'll give you $500 million. When they said $8 million, I didn't negotiate. You'll be ashamed of me. I said, I'll take it. It's the first time that's ever happened to me. I said, because I was afraid they'd change it. So I bought it for $8 million, plus $2 million for the beach. And I turned it into a club, and it's an amazing club.
When you, after you bought it, you realized later that the flight pattern was over.
Right.
And you sued Palm Beach or somebody.
Correct.
And in return for that, they gave you
tremendous amounts of land in West Palm Beach.
Dropped the lawsuit, they gave you, and then what did you do with the land?
I made the land into a great club, Trump International Golf Club, which is now about 15 years old, which has become one of the most successful clubs.
Is that how you got into golf? Was that your first golf?
Actually, I bought one in foreclosure. I love foreclosures, especially when it's somebody else. Always better when it's somebody else's foreclosure. But I bought a big, beautiful piece of land in Westchester in foreclosure. Okay. And I said, what am I going to do with it? I made it into a golf club, and it became very successful. I bought this one out of foreclosure, you know, out of what I did. And I ended up with a tremendous lawsuit, had a good lawyer, and they ended up settling the lawsuit by making me a deal to buy 500 acres at a very good price of land in Palm Beach. And I turned it into a club, and it's become such a hot club. And now Mar-a-Lago and that club, they're sort of like sisters, and they do tremendously together the way they play off each other.
So,
and you've been there, so you know what I mean.
It's a great place. The food's great. Service is great.
Good.
Hospitality is great. You always go around and say hello to people.
Good, I'm glad. I was worried you might say so.
It's true. All right, so let me ask you this. You now own a lot of golf courses. And some people say golf is going this way because people are playing less. So why is golf a good business to have?
Well, for me, it's been great because I've been buying them over the last 10 years since the Depression. You know, I call it the Depression because it really has been for a lot of people. It's been very bad. And I've been buying them, for instance, in Loudoun County, 600 acres right on the Potomac River, right up the road, which is phenomenal. And I bought that for a very good price. One of the gentlemen that I made the deal with is here, so I'm not going to talk too much about what a good deal it was, but they also made a good deal because they didn't know what the hell they were doing. I'm only kidding. Where are you? Right? And they're great people. And we turned that into a tremendous success in Washington. But what I do like is this. First of all, golf is doing very well internationally. Asia, China, all over the place, South America. They just approved it for the Olympics. You know, and it's in the next Olympics. It's never been. And golf is doing really well if you have good places, if you have the good clubs. But what I really like also is the real estate. When I have 600 acres on the Potomac River, when I have 800 acres on the Pacific Ocean facing Catalina Island, and 2.5 miles of frontage on in Los Angeles.
Do you build homes around these?
I do, but I don't even I hate to sell property.
Right, but now you play golf.
Yes.
And you are a handicapper of?
3 or 4.
3 or 4. Okay, well that's pretty good. So you must play a couple rounds a week at the
2 rounds, yeah. I'd love to play more, but I just don't.
So have you ever played with Tiger Woods? Or?
I played with everybody, and Tiger and Phil and everybody, and it's great. It's great to play with them, and that's when you realize you're not really a very good golfer. Because they are tremendously talented people, amazingly talented. You know, it's a chain, right? Like you in business and a couple of the other folks in the room in business. You look at this little triangle, and it's that tip of that triangle. That's what you have. So they're tremendously talented people. and really good people. One of the things I like about golf is that when I buy these courses, I'm buying tremendous amounts of land. So if I ever say, well, you know what, I'm going to close a golf course someplace. I'm going to own 700 or 600 or 800 acres on the Potomac River. It's pretty good stuff. Or if I'm going to own 600 acres on the ocean, on the Pacific Ocean. I have, you know, it's a statement I always make. I never lost money on a lake, a river, or an ocean. I love that. In Scotland, I just bought Turnberry, the Great Turnberry, home of the British Open, which they call the Open Championship because it's probably the most important of the majors. And it's just a great thing. And that's 1,000 acres on the ocean. And you just don't lose money with that. And the clubs do very well. I don't want to close it. I don't want to sell any, but it's great real estate. The other one minor thing, too, I've made tremendous deals because of my relationship to golf. I play golf with people that love golf. And I become great friends with them. I have so many friends. I don't want to mention names.
You make deals on the golf course?
I make deals because of golf. I have so many wonderful friends. People like Terry Lundgren, who's a fantastic guy. He's done an amazing job with Macy's. And, you know, he's a friend of mine. We play golf together. And others. That I could never have the relationship with these people if I said, let's go out to dinner, let's go out to lunch. I don't even think I'd have. I've made many deals. Actually, the Trump Tower site, which is one of the great real estate deals, I really started that by playing a round of golf with somebody that was very attuned to that whole situation in Nashville with Genesco.
So you mentioned Macy's. Now, if you go into Macy's, there's a Macy's not far from here, and you want to buy some Donald Trump clothing, you can do so. I mean, do you pick the clothing, you design it? How does that work?
I have people that are really good, and they come to me and they show me, and I don't spend huge amounts of time because we have really people. You know, PVH is a fantastic company, and they do much of it.
Okay.
And Macy's does a fantastic job, and we have ties, shirts, suits, cufflinks, all that stuff, and they do fantastic. The tie is one of the top-selling ties. This is actually a Trump tie. Anybody want it?
Okay.
But it's, I figured, in case they question, I had to wear it.
All right.
But you know, it's interesting. I used to spend a fortune buying, I didn't spend, I get them free because of The Apprentice, okay, so they give me ties. But still, $500 ties. If a little piece of water, Brioni, little piece of water gets on the tie, it's destroyed. These things are like steel, and they look better. So what can I do?